Hello, Donald Bear here. We're going into part three, the within word pattern stage of spelling. Previously, children were looking at short vowel patterns, CVC. That one's upside down right now, but they're sorting across vowels, looking at short vowels. In this stage, they begin to look at long vowels during within word pattern stage of spelling. The transitional reading stage goes with it. Word study at this stage will be what we talk about. And then towards the end, I'll get into concept sorts. It's a nice bridge to the next part, but it's also concept sorts are great things to do with your children. We talked about concept sorts with the emergent stage, where they're sorting different animals, that sort of thing. This talk is, but here we're getting into more complex pictures and representations and using words. This talk is about 11 minutes. So we're in the transitional stage of reading. You can find that the handout at my website. These are the reading behaviors that go with this stage. I call these children the Wright brothers of reading. They haven't gotten off the ground very far. They don't fly very far. Their stamina isn't the greatest, and it doesn't take much to bring them down a little bit. If it gets too hard, they'll start to point. They'll start to move their lips, and they'll slow down. You'll see they are approaching fluency. They're not expressive yet. They are reading with slight fluency. They haven't got enough steam in reading often to smack intonation onto what they're reading. But that's why we work on repeated reading and reader's theater and expressive reading and plenty of poetry and having fun reading aloud to each other. So they begin to read in phrases with some expression. They stop finger pointing and they begin to read easy chapter books, Nate the Great, Horrible Harry, Genevieve Jones, and I'll show you some more. So these are some of the behaviors that you'll see. Words per minute. They can read 1 to 3 syllable words in context. They stop finger pointing. These are behaviors that you should see. They begin to see that they can read faster silently than orally. So Whales and Dolphins is a I can read book at this stage. You can see lengthier sentences, more 2 and 3 syllable words. Here's some writing at the beginning of this stage. I can read this to you. I will hunt for animals with their head and the skunk butts too, and bears too. I will go to Hollywood and be in a movie and to be a superhero. Now this is a student who is at the end of the letter name and into the beginning of the within word pattern. It's nice to see skunks and there THER is good for letter name. Hunt is good for letter name. And so he's beginning to mark superhero, YRO at the bottom, movie, MUV, EY, if you would. So he's getting there. The book on the left, the 6th edition, is most appropriate of the ones here, although towards the end of the stage we'll look at vocabulary there way on the right, and always we have the within word patterns chapter for when we work with English learners. This book on the top right also becomes important into play when we look at upper level within word pattern. There's a whole chapter for kids who are behind there in the Words Their Way with struggling readers. So this is our parent book, and you'll find a chapter with a lot of these same activities. Students are used but confused in long vowel patterns. They know that FLOT doesn't quite make it, SPOL doesn't quite make it, so they begin to experiment with long vowel patterns. And then you can see the gradual progression from long vowel patterns like the silent E all the way down to the OW, OI. In this slide, you see a sort across vowels, all of them looking at CVVC pattern. Here we're looking at CVVC, CVV, and the good old short vowel pattern CVC. Students like the board game, the racetrack game. They like making charts. They like playing Jeopardy. This is a writing sort. It could be a blind sort where I would call out a word and they would point to the right column, or perhaps they would write the word under the correct column. You can make family activities at home that go to school and back and forth. Here's football. This is the previous stage, but this is a board game. These are some of the activities. Ask your child they should come home knowing what a closed sort is, that is, what the sort that they're doing. We like to do open sorts where we come up with our own categories. Speed sorts are fun. Make sure the child wins. We're always looking for interesting words. Go on word hunts looking for that pattern. Here's a second grade teacher showing the kids the sort. They're doing it with their partners and talking about the sort, looking at the patterns that they'll be studying. They're playing word study games at their seats and at their centers. They're showing each other how they're sorting, in this case the OW, OU. Here's a good page from a word study notebook. You can see at the top the child has written the sort, maybe even added a few words, and then at the bottom explains the categories. And this becomes part of the word study grading form. So I'm going to look at children and grade them their word study notebooks. There will be a section for that. This page happens to be for the student to self-assess as well. And we're not just looking at the final test. There are a number of things that comprise the word study or spelling grade. And so we might have a word study contract. You can see it at the top, the reference. And some are required and some are optional. And so look for these activities in your child's classroom and look for these sorts of patterns for this stage. Now this applies to all kids. We saw some in the emergent stage, as I said. This is beginning with fourth grade, and this teacher Ms. Wilson, developed a sort for stars and planets in fourth grade. You have fourth grade books there looking at this topic. The children sorted them. I just made them bigger. What I like about these are the phrases that she used. Not just words, not just constellations, but just putting in phrases that are important to learning the meanings of words. And then they explained it to their colleagues. Why did you sort it the way you did? We have this for elementary mathematics, a new book. And an important concept here, I'll not belabor it, but we have two types of academic vocabulary, domain-specific and general academic. This is a vocabulary that exists in all, so to speak, most textbooks. There includes signal words or words that are general academic, attributes, the things that classify, whereas these are particular to that domain, if you will, or that specific discipline. But in any case, there are words in both categories that we use for generative vocabulary. When you're teaching one word, you're teaching 10 words. So look at how can we teach poly? Well, we put it in context. And one way of doing that is think of generative vocabulary. Here's another example. Here's root trees. You can find these online as well. In the next talk, you'll see websites. Visu Words is a nice one. This is from that same book, An Anticipation Guide. That's a fun open sort. How would you sort these? How would your partner sort them? I did this sort with fifth graders. I just focused on number 2. All I did was take the bolded words and phrases and write them onto a page like this, and the children cut them up, and then I had them sort them by British versus American. And the first thing we did was read through the words and make sure we had a sense of them. This was heterogeneous. Some kids actually had difficulty. Representation was a difficult word. And then they sorted them with the partners, and we looked at it as a group, British versus American. So this is almost like a KWL at the beginning of a unit and the middle of a unit at the end. It gets you thinking about the terms and the vocabulary and the concepts. Same thing here. You can see that this is from vocabulary. Their way, the teacher put together phrases and words, and then the children sorted by elements, compounds, and mixtures. Isn't that a good one for a speed sort? Here's one teacher example from weather, and you can see that the weather words and the children have self-assessed. In this case, it's only one self-assessment. They may use a circle for the next one and put the date as to what that refers to. But what is the depth of their knowledge for their words? And they can add other words as well. So that's a beginning look at concept sorts. We'll begin again looking at that in part 4, which begins as soon as you go there. Alrighty, hope you learned something about within word pattern and concept sorts. Thank you.